Hey everybody, Tim Evanicki here with the College Audition, back again with another episode of the College Audition podcast, here today with my special guest, Greg Geffrard, Director of BFA Acting at Brenau University and Associate Artistic Director of the Gainesville Theatre Alliance. Thanks so much for joining us today, Greg.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate it.
So we always like to get to know the person before the program, so if you could give us a little bit of your background and training and career leading up to your time at Brenau University.
Of course. I received my undergrad degree, my Bachelor in Arts at the University of South Florida. I'm originally from Miami. And then I lived in New York for a year, learned some hard lessons, and then decided grad school. That's the route. So I ended up at the University of Iowa, where I got my master's. I say my master's in make believe is what I did, but it's a master
I like that.
in theater performance. And then after that, I graduated in 2012 and then moved to Chicago, where I've been a working professional for the last 11 years. Primarily there as an actor, but also did sexual assault prevention education work, which is what led me into doing intimacy work starting in 2020. And so primarily what folks know me as in this moment is a facilitator specifically around conversations around ideas work, so inclusion, diversity, equity, access, and sustainability. And also an intimacy professional, associate faculty. I'm an associate faculty member with theatrical intimacy education, and I've been fortunate in the time that I started working as an intimacy professional in what was that, January of 2022? Yeah, January of 22. So in the in the 20 months that I have been an intimacy professional, I've been fortunate to have worked on 62 productions. And so,
Wow.
yeah, that's not a bragging, that's a like help. Uh, and how then, so For the last 3 years, I've been teaching at the collegiate level. Sorry, last 4 years. 3 years, the last 3 years I spent at Columbia College Chicago. I started off as an adjunct professor there teaching acting. And then my final year there, I was a practitioner in residence. I was an acting teacher with a specialization in intimacy. So helping to build the intimacy program there. And now I am at Brenau and the head of the BFA Acting, and just revamped the entire program and ready to go through all the lovely SACS accreditation and such and launch next fall. So super excited about what's coming next.
Well, let's dive into the program itself and learn about how you are revamping the program. The first question I usually ask everyone is I put them on the spot a little bit when they're on the podcast. Can you give us a 60-second elevator pitch on your program? Give us some of the highlights and some of the reasons why, in 60 seconds or less, why students should be considering Brenau University for BFA acting.
Two primary things. One, the pandemic has put us in a place in which it was already starting to happen, but has been exacerbated that we are really disconnected from our bodies because we literally became heads in boxes talking to each other. And so the wanting of the journey of reconnection is something that's really important to me. And so this program is really built off of like movement pedagogy. So starting from the foundational of like a viewpoint, moving on to like a contact improv of physical acting and moving all the way up into like frantic method. So the reconnection is really important. Two, understanding as a working professional, we have to be I think the theater generalist is not a title that exists anymore, but the multi-hyphenate. So how exactly do we make sure that folks have a specialization but are also able to delve into different things? And so Not only acting, but also directing, also being an educator, because those are the ways in which I continued being in the arts and making a living. Because I think that's a big fear that a lot of parents have is their child is going to literally go into this. And it's just like, but what are the opportunities? And so we are making sure that folks are able to create sustainable careers for themselves by being able to be multiple in their talents and practices.
Yeah. I like that because of the pandemic, we've been disconnected from our bodies. That's the first time I heard it said like that. That's very smart. And really makes you think. It's true. You and I are talking heads and boxes right now, and it's become so much more commonplace. Wow. All right. So let's dive in. I am a freshman BFA musical theater. Sorry, I'm a freshman BFA acting major on my way to Brenau University for my first year there. Tell me what that first year is going to look like for me.
So the first 2 years, what's lovely about the program is having the ability to take classes with other folks. So folks who are in the BFA and the BA all take the same courses over the first 2 years, and those classes are foundational. Every semester, you're either taking or taking all three: an acting class, a movement class, and a voice class. Often these three things are kind of separate, but ultimately those are the three. To me, those are the three staples, the three tenets of like making sure that somebody is becoming a well-rounded actor. And then that which I think is a little bit different here, what I'm trying to make sure is it's like you're also every semester taking at least one or two classes outside of the theater building, simply because there just comes a moment where people kind of feel like their identity is kind of attached to the building. So it's just a reminder that even though, yes, you are here to study for a thing, it's like you're here to also enjoy and have a college experience. And so just making sure that you don't feel like your identity, everything that you understand is only coming from one source, and being able to fully enjoy the rest of the campus altogether.
So, how much is general education or the academic side of things part of their curriculum, part of their coursework for the first year?
So it is usually two classes per semester. So you'll have eight classes altogether in your first 2 years that are outside of the building, and just trying to make sure that they align with what it is that we're doing in the building. So trying to make sure to get like your literature and your writing courses in those first 2 years, simply because like that's when you're going to be doing script analysis. That's when you're going to be doing Shakespeare. That's when you're going to be doing that which is text heavy. And so wanting to make sure that you also are getting supplementary tools to make sure that you can navigate that, because that's when you're going to be writing papers and doing all of this. And then when we are in your final 2 years, the third and fourth year of the program, that is when you are taking like the world perspective class and such, because we're talking about world building and how exactly does that look like outside of the context of simply just the theater.
Great. And you mentioned movement classes. Let's get back to the actual coursework, artistic coursework. You mentioned movement classes. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means? I don't know that I've ever asked any of our BFA acting folks this question before, because everyone talks about movement for the actor. So what does that look like as far as those classes?
So how specifically I have found it's been helpful to help build is um, ultimately that which separates, I think that which creates a unique actor is somebody who just clearly understands themselves. Like I constantly talk about the quote unquote the definition of bad acting is simply somebody who doesn't understand the world that they're navigating in, and so all the choices that they're making aren't supported by the world itself. And so the focus on how we're using the movement pedagogy is um, the fundamental classes, the foundation classes are specifically focused on like viewpoints, which is like a view of self. How am I in relationship to the space itself? And then moving on to contact improv or physical acting, which is then like how am I in relationship with other people, which is like your second semester, your third semester class. And then ultimately, how exactly am I in ensemble, which is like frantic method, devising, creating such together. And then how then the acting is also coupled with that is, in particular, is during their sophomore year, second semester of their sophomore year is when they would be taking the acting three class, which would then be like your Meisner class. But making sure that by the time they get to that point, we're talking about what does sustainability look like. So a movement class will also be like an Alexander class, because we're talking about the fact that like when we're young, thinking about like when we were younger, it's just like I'm invincible, I can do anything. It's just like I roll around, I do the thing, I throw myself across the room. But then you get into like your mid 30s or your late 30s, and you're just like, oh yeah, that is not a sustainable way of working. And so ultimately, how can we make sure that we're not working from a place of just like figure it out, but we are building intentionally of this like I am building my practice, my process is built on like how can I make sure that I can sustain these things. And once I can sustain it at this level, then I can continue building and stacking things on top of themselves. So just don't build a house on some quicksand, you know?
Right. Right. I'm 41, and for the record, it's been a great number of years since I felt like I could throw myself around the room and roll around on the ground. Uh, You mentioned that students take Miser technique. I think you said second semester of their second year.
Correct.
What other schools of acting are they exploring while they're there?
I was trained in Red Nose Clown by good old Paul Kalina. Commedia, so clown work. We're delving into some like period styles. Of course, there's like Shakespeare work. Um, but it is I find myself really rooted in like movement principles and movement practices. And so you are getting your viewpoints, your Tina Landau's, and you are getting also like, Frantic Assemblies of Scott Graham. So it is um, acting wise, Meisner is that, and I find clowning is also that because to me, how they're both connected is just like what they're trying to find is like the root of like truth. And so they're kind of it's sprinkled into all the things that we do. That's kind of like the primary as far as acting goes. But then like the movement pedagogies like kind of differ and like build on top of each other.
Wonderful. And what about voice for the actor? We're not talking about singing classes, but we're talking about
No.
the third piece that you mentioned earlier. What does that look like?
Voice. I will admit, voice is probably what I feel like to be like my weakness here, as far as it's like if you're talking about the three principles or the three staples of voice acting and movement. And so my brain is thinking specifically like Linklater I found to be like kind of like the most foundational, like the most accessible, excuse me, for students. I've done like Fitzmaurice, I've done oh my God, why am I blanking on names of these? I'm literally like looking at this is like to my left. Oh yeah, I've done Patsy Rodenberg and such, but I find like Linklater work in particular has been a really, really great way of building. So I would not necessarily be the person that's in charge of that. So I'm not going to pretend as, we have theater professionals and academics on this. I'm not going to be like, I know what I'm talking about, because they would read me to filth, and nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. But Linklater has been a lot of the work, and I've been really excited about how does one sustain text through heightened text and poetry. And to me, like a lot of people think there's like, your Shakespeare's, your Moliere's and such, but I'm just like, also for me, it's like August Wilson, Dominic Morisseau, like that, those to me are like heightened languages or poetic languages. And how exactly do you support the voice for the breath for carrying and sustaining thoughts, like long thought, long, complex thoughts. And so that is what I'm hoping to like build in correlation with the movement is just like is always movement is always connected to a voice to making sure that those two things don't start feeling like they're separate, but they are a part of one thing.
And so I don't think I asked you this earlier, and I usually do. What are the classes that you are actually responsible for teaching? When will the students be in your class?
So I teach the fundamentals class, which is the class that all first semester students take, which is focused on all three acting, voice, and movement. I teach script analysis. Um, I teach directing, which I'm really, really excited about. I just love, I think it's just also very beneficial for actors to take directing classes to understand what is happening and what does world building look like from the outside. And then script analysis, like understanding like dramaturgically, like how does one build work? And then I teach the Acting 3 class, so I would be teaching that Meisner class. I'm teaching the Movement 2 class next semester. And I'd also be teaching the teaching practicum class because something I'm really interested in. That's not part of the BFA program, but part of the BA program. Is I'm super excited about education. I spent 8 of my 11 years in Chicago were spent being a teaching artist. And I think it's just very fundamental that we have people who are enthusiastic in teaching the education of art, and just like essentially keeping this craft alive because we just need more and more educators. Like that is always going to be a need. So those are the classes like primarily I'm teaching right now. So Acting 3, movement, script analysis, directing, and a teaching practicum class that is coming coming to a Brenau near you, fall of 2024.
I love that. It's coming to a Brenau near you. Tell us a little bit about the performance opportunities for students.
The Gainesville Theatre Alliance. So the Gainesville Theatre Alliance is a collaboration between the University of Northern Georgia and Brenau University, and so we share students. And so coming to Brenau, you have the ability not only to work with Brenau students but also with UNG students. And so you are literally like taking classes across two universities and being in part of an expanded community. So there are, at this moment, we do 4 shows a semester, 2 shows in the fall, 2 shows in the spring. The first show, the first show of the year is always a theater for young adults show. And it's part of what is called Wonder Quest. And so it is specifically focused with being in building that community, like as I was talking about with the teaching practicum class, being in community with folks and what does it look like to create work that is specifically supposed to be in conversation with young folks and getting their interest in the arts and utilizing it as an opportunity not only to teach but also to be part of dialogue and part of like what goes into art making. And then we do a second show in the fall, and then each year we do 2 straight plays and 2 musicals. One straight play, one musical each semester.
Um, and so, what about opportunities outside of? Would you call those your main stage shows with the Gainesville Theatre Alliance?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So, outside of the main stage shows, what are there any other performance opportunities available?
yes. There are many. I don't say cabaret style. That may not be appropriate or accurate. Not appropriate. Accurate to say. Um, but the students are really engaged in like creating. There's a very specific writing, and I feel so bad because I'm a big fan of Aiden and Jordan, and I can't remember what their um, what their group is called, but they essentially create it is like new works. It is the idea of like coming in and creating new works and having a night of performing and celebrating new works. There's like Pandora's Box where you can come in and like
Mm-hmm.
share. There's usually like a topic that you come in and you share. Like these are all things that are student run and student generated. Something that I'm really interested in trying to bring into the fold starting next fall is like a reading series. Being that we only do 2 shows in the fall and 2 shows in the spring, I'd be really interested in just like what are shows that we're interested in being part of. Let's like a reading, just like a reading, making sure that like those stories are also making their ways to the community and being part of the dialogue of the community, even though we're not putting, like a production budget behind it. And so this trying to get as many opportunities to get stories out there and trying to get as much diverse voices out because I know that being that we serve a very specific community here. I know that there are some things that don't make it to our stages, but I think should still be part of the dialogue here. So yeah. And then last thing I will say is wanting something that I am looking to do, after my being here for 11 whole weeks, is thinking about like what does it look like to be in connection with the Atlanta market. Specifically, I'm like looking for like connections with like the Alliance and like what is like the Aurora, like what are the other theaters here, being that a lot of the students may graduate and want to stay in the area, and so letting them know what are the opportunities that are available for them when they become working professionals outside of the space.
That's wonderful. And tell us a little bit about it's a BFA acting program. Tell us about any training that you do for on camera or film acting, and what opportunities there are there for that.
Oh, so funny. The on-camera class is something that has already been offered here, but I'm in the process right now of speaking to Ted Garner, who is the head of communications here, and thinking about what does a collaboration look like. I'll be honest at this moment, I don't know fully what it looks like. I mean, I know what one is needing as far as like training to be like to do on-camera work, which is simply understanding the camera, what is the camera picking up, what is the nuances of it, what are the things, how am I telling stories in a particular way, understanding pace of camera, because I'm finding that like obviously I mean, sometimes you don't even get a rehearsal process, but like the on-camera experience seems to be like a shorter, like, it can be like hurry up and wait. If you've been on set, you know what I'm talking about. But it is how exactly am I both commercial ready, film ready, um, and just like understanding how to create. I know folks, specifically people folks of the generation that we are teaching, the 18 to 22-year-olds, are really interested in like content creation, but just also understanding is like how exactly is that generated? Um, how exactly are we able to create a barometer of understanding what we're creating and what exactly is the story that is being told? Very much is like we're trying to bring awareness to the actor about like what is your body doing, making sure that you're working out of choice and not habit. It is the same thing when camera because the camera picks up everything. So for me, it's just like camera literacy, like understanding like how does this thing work and how exactly can I make it work for myself. Final thing I would say, something I'm interested also in teaching when it comes to the camera classes is being that I'm an intimacy professional, like what does and thinking about the fact that I'm really interested in directing, what does intimacy coordination look like? You know, being that that is a field that is expanding and understanding that the Atlanta market is a market that one would be really interested in and be kind of foolish to ignore the fact that there's so much being filmed down there. But what exactly does it look like to be somebody who's there in a support role behind the camera instead of in front of the camera and engaging in those conversations and training individuals who are interested in that.
You mentioned content creating. I think that made my ears perk up for a minute because I was like, "Holy cow! We're actually in the future enough that that is something that actors are studying in college now is how to create content online." But that totally makes sense,
Yeah,
uh,
it
and
is.
that's really
Well,
interesting that it's making its way into curriculum.
yeah. Well, it's. I think. Around the time of like, it was like New Girl, and it was. Oh my God, why am I blanking on the name of the show? I shoot. Something City. Something City. Oh,
Something city. Oh no,
and it was really funny. But I'm gonna feel like a fool later. I'm just gonna look it up and be like, that's the show I was talking about. But all this to
we
say,
could we could
yeah, yeah.
totally edit this out. We
No, no,
won't,
no,
but
no,
we
no, no. We
could.
want. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it is a matter of under. There was a point. I want to say for me, it was around 2012, 2013, 2014, around that window, when it became really clear that one had the ability to create their own work without necessarily worrying about gatekeepers. You know, like I can just like create a thing with my friends on my phones, and like the phones were getting up to the quality where like that which I was shooting on my phone didn't look like something shot on a phone. And what I think
Hmm.
was really exciting about that time was the idea of like I didn't have to wait for opportunities to be in the process of creating. And so, like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying like we're going to be generating stuff to the point where just like you're going to become YouTube famous. Like, I don't understand how to do that. Like, but it is a matter of, if I understood how to do that, I think I'd do that for
Right.
myself. I'm not gonna
we,
lie
we
to you, Tim.
we wouldn't be sitting here. Right.
Yes, but it is a matter of this profession that we do is really hard, especially if you're constantly waiting for other people to create opportunities for you or to say yes to you. And so that is where the conversation of the multi hyphenate comes in. It's like I my beginning careers in Chicago in 2012, like 2012 to 2016, I was a producer. Like I produced like an original work specifically around poetry because spoken word poetry is my background. Like I was producing a show once a month. And I was doing that while waiting for like other opportunities and such like that for like the commercials for the shows and such. But I think to me, like that is how you make sure that you don't fall out of love with the craft because it gets really hard for you to, for folks to even feel like they're even an artist if they don't feel like they're working on something. So how do we make sure that we're giving people agency to tell them this like you have the ability to create and you don't have to wait for somebody to give you an opportunity to be able to get your story out there.
Amazing. So, we spoke about performance opportunities. We spoke about what that sort of looks like as far as on camera things. But from what you said, you're working on a partnership right now with communications. But is there student films or anything now that's a possibility, or is that what's you're sort of working on right now?
I know that that is something that is happening. I I would I would not the reason I am not speaking on is because I am not as knowledgeable about that because that isn't a conversation that I have jumped into yet.
Got it.
But that is something. There are a ton of student films that are being that are shooting right now and are happening. And I know they're happening because I constantly get emails asking me to forward this to my students because there are opportunities and they're looking for actors.
Wonderful. Um, is there the opportunity for BFA acting students to either minor in something else or even double major?
I would actually encourage them to do so, being that we tend to get into the arts, and there are multiple things that we're interested in. Like I know I was somebody who was interested in, I've always been interested in performance, but spoken word performance and like solo performance is something I've been interested in. So I did take like a playwriting class, and I did take like poetry classes. I mean, I'm also somebody I encourage the students to like take classes outside of the theater. So you don't, so like I said, so your identity doesn't just become, intrinsically like connected with the theater. And so taking dance classes, I know the program that I created is in conversation with a musical theater program that Brenau also has here. And so it is a matter of, yes, explore, do all those things. You are in college, get your minor, do those things. And as somebody who would be your advisor, especially if you're in the BFA program, the BFA acting program, it is a matter of just like how exactly can we make sure that you get those opportunities, that you're able to do that. So understand that like that which is outside of your art only feeds into your art. Taking a global perspective class is really great, especially if you're telling stories about that require a global perspective overall. And so to me, I find that those taking classes outside of the theater are, if nothing else, are necessary in order for you to understand and expand not only your imagination, but your understanding of the world outside of this space.
And is it easy to do so with the schedule, with the curriculum that you have in place for BFA actors to minor probably, but how about to double major in something?
To double major in something, I mean, it would likely end up extending the amount of time that you are here. So if you're wanting to double major, it is probably going from like a 4 year to a 5 year, simply because I mean I know the requirements for this program, but also making sure that you fulfill the requirements to get that additional major. And so I would encourage folks like probably minor would be the place to look at. Um, Minoring may be the place to look at if you're wanting to like expedite and get out of here in that 4 years. But if you're wanting to do 5 years and make sure that you get fully what it is that you're wanting here, like I am for it completely and utterly. But just making sure that you realistically understand what that's going to mean as far as like time goes.
Um, and could you tell us a little bit, introduce us, so to speak, to some of the other key faculty members that students will be interacting with while they're there?
Oh, yes. So many folks who are part of the Gainesville Theatre Alliance at Brenau in particular, Steve Clough, who just came in, and I'm a huge fan of him. If you want to just Google him, he's great. Worked on the West End forever and is like now teaching here. There's me, who is still working professional. There's Zachariah Pierce, who is part of the GTA and is the chair at UNG. There is Elisa. Oh my God, why am I working on Elisa's last name? Elisa, who is a working professional, primarily doing like voiceover. Elisa Carlson is also somebody who works in the Atlanta market. Last thing she worked on was on the production of Peter Rabbit at Alliance in Atlanta. So like those are just individuals who are just like continuously working and continuously part of the conversation of not only the college, or sorry, the university itself, but in conversation with the community around here.
So we spoke with Steve recently, and we just had an episode released not too long ago about the musical theater program there, and he spoke quite a bit about the Gainesville Theatre Alliance, and it's something that you mentioned as a partnership. I would like just to have you speak a little bit more about how exactly that partnership works, and when you're doing the productions, um, they're performed in partnership with another university. But where are the productions? What performance spaces are you using? And can you speak a little bit more to that?
Of course. So there are one, two, three primary performance spaces two here at on Brenau's campus, and one in particular at, excuse me, I'm about to do a hiccup. Apologize. So two at Brenau and one at UNG. So the one at UNG is a black box that can be converted into many different configurations, but primarily um, serves as a three-quarter thrust. And That is the Cabell Theater at UNG. And then the theaters here are Pierce Auditorium, which is where the the TYA shows, the Wonder Quest shows occur here, which is a proscenium space. And then we have a second proscenium space, and it's a larger space, which is like the Hush Theater here. So we, depending on the shows, when deciding the season, depending on the shows, we try to make sure to rotate which spaces are used in the semester. And like depending on the show, it's just like, okay, well, we feel this show probably work better in this space, and then like making sure to program them to make sure that there's a balance between the two campuses.
Beautiful. Talk to us a little bit about the campus and where it's located, and is it sort of a classic college campus experience? Is it more of an urban campus? Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
It is a classic. It is a classic college experience. So it is located in Gainesville, Georgia, which is about an hour north of Atlanta. It is you can I mean, the campus is a very like it's an open campus. You can walk around. It's a very a lot of open spaces, which I really enjoy. Kind of reminds me of like my undergrad experience at University of South Florida. But there are also a lot of commuters that come here, so it is also really commuter friendly in the sense of just like there are many things that one can do around in the area, especially if you're going to be here for the entire day. Everything feels close. It's not to necessarily say that the campus is small, but like everything feels close and everything feels kind of like really uh, personal and open.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of just like being able to just like walk around, and I mean I love the fact that I can leave the theater building and just like be walking down the street and just like see people walking by the library and such, and being in a space where feels very, I'm gonna date myself here, feels very Cheers. Everybody knows your name when you're walking down the street. So you know
Not a single student listening to this has any idea what you're talking about, but I did, and the parents will.
Yes. Yes. I probably should have said Arthur. Arthur, is that also dating myself? It's like every day when you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I actually also got that one, believe it or not. So Gainesville, what type of things are there to do off campus and around there? You're new to the program, or you said to yourself you're only 11 weeks in, so are you also new to the area?
I am very new to the area, so I am
So
still in the place of like figuring out like the eats and everything of that nature. Um, but the students seem really excited about like being able to go and explore. And I think I love the fact that it feels you're in a city, but like you can drive, I think 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes in one direction and kind of feel like you are out in open spaces. I find that my experience when I was at the University of Iowa for grad school, I think the reason that that works so well for me is because you could, yes, there were things to do, and yes, it was a smaller city, but there is also something about like being able to like be in nature, be outside, be in connection with, and like just genuinely like outside of a building, that I think is just, really refreshing for humans who spent, 8 to 10 hours inside of buildings all day. Um,
mhm.
so yeah, I haven't explored as much as I would like to, because I just started spending weekends here because I was at the beginning of the semester. I did the really smart thing of working on four shows out of town. So I was out of town like the first 7 out of 8 weekends of the semester. I was out of town working on shows. So I haven't had a chance to like explore as much as I would have liked to. But
Wow,
yeah.
the life of an actor. Holy cow.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
actually, life of intimacy choreographer. So I was working intimacy choreography on three shows in Chicago and one show in Arkansas.
let's just say a life in the theater then.
Oh
Wow.
yeah,
My
yes,
goodness. Um,
yes.
so let's switch gears now and talk about the audition process. And I'll just sort of leave this up to you to sort of give us a narrative on what the application and audition process looks like for BFA acting?
Applying to applying to the school, and then also being able to then applying to Brenau University, and then also being able to audition. There are multiple audition opportunities. You can always obviously send in an audition on tape, but coming to visit the campus for auditioning, actually coming to one of the different conferences that we will be at, like an SETC and such, and being able to just like come out. I personally prefer like in-person auditions because ultimately it is not only like us auditioning you, you're also auditioning us. And it's just a matter of just like understanding that if you're going to be in a program for 4 years, wanting to be in a space where you can actually like be in conversation with those people and see those individuals. I think something that has taken me some time to acclimate to, and I promise this is connected to the audition, something that's taken me a while to acclimate to is like the fact that like I have had meetings with my provost. Like I have been in academic places in which I've literally like never met my provost, and the fact that I can just like walk down, uh, walk across the street and like into an office and talk to them is talk to Dr. Eck is really important. And so that for me is what the audition process is, the ability to be able to walk to somebody, have a conversation with them, because it's not only the fact that you're going to be working together, but you're going to be building together. So how exactly can we make sure that we're in a space to be in dialogue with each other? As far as like as somebody who is as an auditioner, or sorry, as an auditioner, somebody who's watching auditions, what I'm specifically looking for is just like somebody who kind of understands where they are right now in their process. Um, it is great. It is not only understanding that which you don't do well, but also understanding like what you do well. Like I am not of the like, break the actor down to build them back up. Like I don't think that is something that is very helpful, ultimately. And so it is a matter of just like, are you clear about what are the things that you do well, but what are also the things that you want to work on? Because if you're somebody who's just like, I don't have anything I need to work on, then I would ask like, why would you want to come to an academic institution for 4 years and spend that money? Um,
Mhm.
and also, being open with being okay with like, I don't know what I need to work on, but being open to what that conversation looks like, because ultimately, I'm not interested in helping to create a burnout actor. I'm looking to help to build and grow an 18 to 22-year-old who is looking for the ability to be able to have a long career. And for me, that is understanding like what your technique is, what your process is, what are the things you can get back to, especially in an industry where it's very easy to kind of get lost, and not lost because like people with bad intent or malicious people are trying to direct you in one way or another. But it is an industry that I have learned like if you don't know who you are, there are a lot of people who are trying to line up to tell you who you are. And so, are you seeking people who are like seeking to get a clarification about who they are, not only as an artist but as a person, and then how can we grow that and give you the tools so you'll be able to succeed even if you leave here and theater is not the thing that you want to end up doing, but like
Mm.
hopefully the tools that you're giving that are given help you to be a sustainable and fulfilled human outside of this.
Mhm. What are the audition requirements? What are you looking the students to prepare for?
Preparing a 60 to 90 second monologue. If they are also wanting to sing, then also making sure that they have 16 bars of music to like audition, because the actors here are also if you are also interested in doing musical theater, like that is something that is encouraged, being that we do 2 musicals per year.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And do you have to apply? Is there a pre-screen? I didn't ask that question.
There is not a pre-screen. No, no. You are
Got it.
yes, yeah, yeah. Send in your application, send in your audition, and then we will continue being in conversation about like what the next steps look like.
Beautiful. Well, Greg, it's been great to sit and chat with you today about your program. I have just a couple more questions as we wrap up the episode. The first question, of course, is if students or parents want to get to know anything more about your program, what's the best way to get in touch?
Please, I mean, email me. I love me an email. So uh, my GGEFFRARD at Brenau.edu, or you can just go to Brenau.edu and go to theater, and you'll see my face and my email attached to that. Um, yeah, that is the best way to contact me. Is just like literally just going on the website. And the lovely thing is, while you're on the website, you can learn a little bit more about like the program and where the program is moving towards. And hopefully, if that doesn't answer your question, then I'm then looking forward to being in dialogue with you. I love setting up
Beautiful.
phone calls and Zoom calls. How do we get people in communication in real time and not just
Great.
yes.
Great. And my last question that I always ask everybody is to please tell me something that you are looking forward to in the upcoming school year.
I am directing Crucible in the spring,
Wow.
and we are in pre-production for that, and it is it's gonna be a fun one. Yeah, it is. In the times that we are living in, election cycle coming up, many things in question. And I think it's very easy to feel like we are kind of shrouded in a little bit of darkness. And so my approach to this play in particular is how do people, or what is the journey of everyone like trying to find what their light is? What is the thing that allows them to see themselves for who they are and not what everybody else is telling them that they are? So I'm super excited about engaging and delving into that play that has 20 plus people in it. Yes.
All right. Well, Greg, once again, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with us today and teaching us about your program. And we are looking forward to seeing all the wonderful things that you have planned for the BFA Acting program at Brenau University.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day. For more information on the exciting training, workshops, and resources we have to offer at the College Audition, please visit us online at www.thecollegeaudition.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.